we begin today, just remember to put your mics on mute. We have a lot to cover. We're going to be talking about I have to do what and human resource topics for arts and culture and nonprofits. And there's a lot of information that our guests are going to share today. And then after the first presentation, we do have a very special announcement about a new partnership that we're offering related to HR consulting for organizations and for the arts sector. I always love to start with a quote, so I just pulled this one from the artist Edgar Degas. Art is not what you see, but what you make others see. I like that. And then because of time, I'm just going to ask you to really just think about some of the arts and culture events and activities that you've been up to over the past few weeks and how they've been sustaining you. You can share those in the comments or the chat if you'd like to. And then I'm going to head on over and tell you about today's agenda. So we have Deborah Duncan, who is the Director of HR Consulting for HR Biz Cloud Accounting, and she's going to talk to us today. And then we also have Rebecca Cheney, who's the Development Director at the CSO. She's going to share information about their upcoming virtual 5K, which sounds like a 5K that I could probably complete since it's virtual, but I want to learn more about it. And then any updates, announcements, things that you want to share before we end out the hour. So without any further delay, I'm going to introduce my new friend, Deborah Duncan, and she's going to take it from here.
James, thank you so much. So right now you can see me. I'm going to turn my picture off just so you can focus on what I'm presenting and I can focus on what I'm presenting. So good morning to everybody. I would really prefer to do this in person and get to meet all of you. And I'll look forward to that opportunity in the future. But for now, let's focus on what I have to say, please. I want to thank James and ArtsBuild for providing the opportunity to share some information and advice about human resources topics that should be relevant to your organization. And as James and I were talking and developing this, I realized we could provide you with a 12-month series of webinars about these topics. So please just consider this some selected topics for you to be aware of, and that there will be many more to come. So let's jump right in. And James is going to be advancing slides for me, so thank you, James. Here's the outline of what I'd like to cover just today, just 5 topics, and all of them are very dense, and I'm going to try to consolidate it into something palatable. So first, COVID-19. We could attend webinars probably every single day about what's going on with COVID-19 and how that affects the workplace. I'm just going to focus on one area today. Then also understanding employee classifications and timekeeping requirements under the Fair Labor Standards Act, which applies to all employers. And then using volunteers as unpaid employees and what that means for you. Then job descriptions and how you can use them to support your mission. And last, employee handbooks that ensure job performance. James, if you'll go on to the next one. So first, when the pandemic hit, one of the many pieces of legislation that came out of that was a section called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or this FFCRA, or the Act as they call it. That act took effect on April 1st and remains in effect through December 31st, although there is a possibility it could be extended depending on what happens this winter. But employers with fewer than 500 employees must provide up to 2 weeks of paid sick leave. And there are 6 different reasons that might be triggered. The big thing to know about this is that it literally does apply to any employer with fewer than 500 employees. And usually our small organizations, most of these major federal laws don't apply to, but it really does to every employer. You can apply for an exception for this not to apply to you, but in order for that exception to be accepted, you have to somehow validate that allowing an 80-hour leave for one employee could jeopardize your entire company. And that's a very high bar to hit. So the next slide will show you that what are called the qualifying reasons for a leave. Thank you, James. But for reasons 1 through 3, you have to provide 100% of paid time off up to 80 hours. And if an employee is part-time, it has to be equivalent to what that individual would generally work over a 2-week period. But you can see some of the reasons that they are subject to a quarantine, that they've been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, that they actually are experiencing symptoms or have been diagnosed with COVID. And then for reasons 4 through 6, an employer would have to provide 2/3 of the pay for these qualifying reasons, which are caring for an individual who has been quarantined or is self-quarantining, caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed, or experiencing any other substantially similar condition specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So again, a really high bar, and it really does apply to every employer. And we have a ton of additional information. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to contact us. At the end, I'll be sharing all of our contact information. But this is very fluid guidance. We are starting to see our first case law come through as cases hit the federal courts, and it is slightly changing what the original regulations were. We're seeing that the case law is getting more and more employee protective versus employer protective, and so that's something to really be aware of. So again, a lot of information, and I'm just going to have to go on to the next topic, and I can provide more later. Thank you, James. So the next area is employee classifications and timekeeping requirements. So one of the major federal pieces of legislation that apply to pretty much every employer is the Fair Labor Standards Act. And one of those sections is about job classifications. And it's really important to understand this because an employer can't just decide whether or not they're going to classify an employee as non-exempt or exempt. There are specific federal regulations around this. And so in a nutshell, a non-exempt employee are employees whose work is covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act. They are not exempt from the laws requiring minimum wage and overtime. So these are what we normally consider our hourly employees, and if they work more than 40 hours per week, they are eligible to be paid time and a half for their overtime. Then you have exempt employees. Those are generally executives, managers, professional, administrative, and outside sales staff. They are exempt from the minimum wage and overtime provisions. So if they work more than 40 hours, they just continue to receive one set salary. They do not receive overtime. One important point to know is that exempt employee salaries can be reduced only for specific reasons. So as employers, we usually think of exempt employees as just simply not receiving overtime, but that law kind of cuts both ways. If they only work part of a day, they still get their full day's pay as an exempt salaried employee. You're not allowed to reduce that time unless you provide employer-provided paid time off as a benefit. Then you can require that PTO or paid time off be applied to the time that the employee is not working. Otherwise, you cannot. You still have to pay them that regular salary. And again, this is a topic that we could talk about a lot more. Thank you, James. Next are employee classifications and timekeeping. Continuing, the Fair Labor Standards Act requires employers to maintain accurate records of hours worked for non-exempt employees. So the Fair Labor Standards Act doesn't require employers to use time clocks or time cards or any other specific timekeeping system. However, they are required to retain all wage and time information. And this, this is one of those regulations that does require repeated and willful violations to end up resulting in fines. And somebody has to complain, to stimulate an investigation as to whether or not an employer is doing it right. But it does only take one disgruntled employee, even somebody that you let go for cause. If they have some reason to file a complaint, you could end up in an investigation that verifies whether or not you're keeping appropriate records for timekeeping. So it is very important to do. Next topic, James. Volunteers as unpaid employees, and this is a subject we're probably all very familiar with, but I want to give you some of these little pointers from an HR perspective that you may not be specifically aware of. So under the Fair Labor Standards Act, employees who volunteer or donate their services, usually part-time basis, for public service, religious, or humanitarian objectives are not considered employees. So any of those regulations that apply to employees do not apply to these volunteers. But also under the Fair Labor Standards Act, employees may not volunteer their services to for-profit private sector employers. Now, this may not be something that you deal with, but it also applies to the employees of nonprofit and public sector organizations. So they can't donate their time to their own employer. And this happens pretty frequently. We have an employee and then we have a particular event for our nonprofit, and our employees very willingly come and donate their time to do that. In actuality, that would be considered a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act, because under the Fair Labor Standards Act, there's no way really to discern whether or not that's not an implied requirement by that employer that their employee donate their time. So it's something to really watch for. That should actually be paid time, not volunteered time, if you are using your own employees. And an organization that uses volunteers should know what their coverage is under insurance carrier for providing for a volunteer in case of injury or for a crime is committed or something like that. So whenever you use volunteers, just be sure you know what is covered under your insurance policy. And know that volunteers do come with risks. So if you haven't already, it is wise to develop some form of screening for those volunteers so you know exactly who you're getting. And to be sure to set clear guidelines and expectations for the specific assignments for each volunteer. Thank you, James. Our fourth topic is on job descriptions. A lot of people think of job descriptions as something they write up and then kind of put in a file. Maybe it's created for recruiting, but that's all. And really a job description can be a really great tool that communicates the purpose of each role to the purpose of your organization. And I've seen this used really well in organizations to to do a number of things. One, to recruit. One, to really communicate the expectations of the role, the essential duties, and then, of course, the required knowledge, skills, and abilities. But it can also support really mission-critical HR functions. So recruiting top talent, succession planning for the organization, and one of the major pieces, performance management to advance employee contribution for organizational advancement. Because once an employee truly understands what they're going to be held accountable to, an employer can use that to review their performance and say, hey, here was the expectation, and here's how we think you're performing to it. And then here may be any of the gaps, either the gap in what the expectations are or what the opportunities are for that employee for next steps in their contributions to the company. And it all begins with a really good job description. And it's one of those things that we can help companies with. And our last topic, employee handbooks to ensure job performance. A lot of employers think that employee handbooks are kind of like the do's and don'ts. And it's not quite like the 10 commandments. And I've seen companies do, 65-page employee handbooks, which really, that's not the full intent of an employee handbook. It's not really designed to keep all of your policies and procedures. It's really another great communication tool to ensure just effective job performance. And a good employee handbook should introduce the employees to your culture, your mission, and your values. And it's a missed opportunity if your employee handbook just doesn't give employees a really good sense of what the organization stands for and what its plans are. It should also communicate to employees what's expected of them as an employee working there, and to educate employees about what they can expect from management and from leadership. And then to clearly communicate some fundamental company policies, like the way the company sees things and the way the company does things. It also should showcase the benefits that you offer, because it's also, it's not only conveys policies, but it also conveys why the employee should be there, what the company can do for them too. You also want to be sure that your employee handbook complies with federal and state laws. So I would recommend a review, if you haven't had one in a while, of your employee handbook. We always recommend an update at least every 3 years, because there are a lot of handbooks that are older than that, don't have policies around, for example, the use of social media, looking at an expansion of what constitutes harassment.
Deborah, I think we lost you.
Oh. Political.
I can hear you.
What happened?
Ask him if he can hear you.
James, can you hear me?
I can now, but you went out for a moment.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have no idea why. So let me go back and just say, we recommend that companies update their employee handbooks at least every 3 years, just because they often are lacking policies like the use of social media. And one of the things we're seeing is a need to expand the definition of harassment in the workplace. There was a wave of focus on sexual harassment, which I believe most companies are doing a very good job at understanding and helping to prevent. But we're also seeing new harassment around political, religious, and racial tensions. And there's really good language available to help put that in your handbook and be able to hold people accountable for just generally respectful behavior in the workplace. So we recommend that that be looked at and be really used as a tool for the company. And now that we've kind of blown through those 5 really dense topics, I would like to open it up for any specific questions people might have, and you're welcome to put those in the chat box. All right, we're not getting any.
Yeah, so I don't see any questions in the chat box.
Well, here's the benefit of having all our contact information here. So this is the kind of thing that HR Biz does. We provide companies with all kinds of HR support, and it can be in all these different areas. We can help you with HR documents like employee handbooks and job descriptions and performance reviews. We can also help you with processes like recruitment, interviewing and onboarding, performance management, employee relations, decision-making, even culture change. We do a lot right now in leadership consultation. We also provide training in topics like harassment, interviewing skills, how to share feedback, team building, decision-making, and we can also serve as your fully outsourced HR manager. The other half of HR Business Solutions work is in bookkeeping. So we provide full service bookkeeping from, the small, let's clean stuff up so you're ready for the next year or the next period, all the way through doing completely outsourced bookkeeping. And we have just recently partnered with ArtsBuild, and James, I'll turn it over to you to talk more about that.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being with us today. So as many people on this Zoom know, Arts Build and Arts Forward have been really working together to put together a suite of shared services that the mission support organizations for Arts Build, Arts Forward organizations, and the arts sector in general can access and use to build capacity at their organizations or in their practice. And some of the things that we've done is introduced you to the Volunteer Lawyers and Professionals program. We have racial equity consulting for organizations that is happening right now. We're working on putting together a marketing and public relations agreement. We're setting up a whole year of grant writing and development training for all of you. And we're excited because we've partnered with HR Biz to be able to do a year of workshops, but also for mission support funded organizations of Arts Build, you can access their services at half the cost. Anything that you need or want to do with them would be at half the cost. And thanks to some of our local foundations and support of Arts Build donors, we're able to cover the other half of that for everyone. So we're excited to make that available today. And when Miriam sends out the follow-up email, she'll include this set of slides, as well as information about how you can access HR Biz and begin to work with them and get the things that you need out of the service agreement. I see somebody is in the chat. Let me see. Oh, someone said, yes, this is so helpful. That's what we're here for. Thank you, Dawn. So please take advantage of it. We'll continue to roll out these shared types of services throughout the year and, check in. Monica is putting out a survey right now that is going to help us even further refine and edit and respond to the specific things that you need as an art sector, as an organization. And we'll just continue to work together to make these things happen. So does anyone have any questions for Deborah or Lynn before we move on to our next presenter?
James, if you don't mind to go to the last slide where
Oh,
our
yeah.
contact information is. Thank you.
So yeah, we'll send out the slides. You can take a picture, and Lynn has also put in their email addresses into the chat if you want to grab those. Well, thank you, Deborah and Lynn, for being with us today. And you're welcome to hang out and find out about the Symphony's 5K. Or if you have to head out, we will see you. And we hope that lots of people will reach out to you for assistance and for the help that they need. And we're excited about this new partnership with you and us here at Arts Build. So thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, James.
All right, so the next thing is the Chattanooga Symphony and Opera, Beethoven's 5K. So I'm gonna go on mute and I'll just ask Rebecca to take over and tell us about it. And Rebecca, I have the website up too, so just let me know where you want me to go.
Oh, perfect, James. Thank you so much. Arts Build, James, all of you guys for having us here today. I'm really excited to share more about this opportunity and just general, and also in terms of like how we're planning and going about it. So, hopefully we can serve as a resource as well. The first thing that I want to kind of throw out there, and James, when you said, oh, I might actually be able to compete and do it, that's how I felt too. I'm not a runner. So a virtual 5K is kind of complicated, but also kind of not. It's a 5K that people can do virtually. So there's no logistics involved. People can do it on their own time from wherever they are in the world during the week period the race is going to be. So the fun and kind of really nice thing on a planning side from a virtual 5K's perspective is that you really don't have any logistics to handle because people do it on their own, which was super attractive to me. So from a planning perspective, because, when you think about 5Ks, you think about closing roads, hiring security, getting porta potties, like really convoluted stuff that, you know, people who work at orchestras necessarily always know how to do. So I was very excited. We actually learned about the virtual 5K concept from one of our musicians. She participated with the Alabama Symphony Orchestra when they held their virtual 5K toward the end of May. So she brought it to us and said, hey guys, this was really successful there. Maybe we want to look into this. So in terms of the planning and research phase, I reached out to their developer, Nicole, and Nicole and I had a long phone conversation, lots of fun. She kind of filled me in on the platform they use, which you can see on your screen. It's called Run Sign Up. And James is so expertly scrolling around. It's actually pretty easy to set up. There are some pros and cons about it, but honestly, after I had a phone conversation with Nicole, I did a little bit of research on their help pages and contacted some of their behind the scenes folks. I was able to get it set up. There's a Facebook integration for fundraising, which was really great. We are fortunate enough to have our own CRM database. So we have a function in linking that with our patrons. But for those of you who may not have it, Run Sign Up has that functionality as well. So anyway, it really kind of came down to just sitting down and trying to plug through it. And like I said, it really isn't that bad in terms of setting it up. We're in the implementation and marketing phase right now. Of course, we're about, I think we're about 3.5 weeks out still. So one of the biggest things that we're working on right now is figure out ways that we can reach not only, you know, our patrons and our loyal donor base, but how we can involve others in the community. There's a couple fun features that I'm really excited about. We're doing what we're calling a digital race bag, which was another ASO thing that they did as well. Essentially, you know, I don't know if any of you have participated in a 5K before, but you show up, you get your shirt, you get your little, you know, plastic baggie that has a bunch of stuff in it. It's basically that, just virtual. So we're in the process of reaching out organizations and businesses and collecting incentives like coupons and things like that to compile that digital race bag. And that's a super fun thing. I'm very excited about it. We've gotten a decent response so far, and we're hoping for more because, you know, we really want to incorporate other organizations as well. Even though this is a fundraiser for the orchestra, you know, we have always, I think, tried to prioritize with organizations in the community, not just local nonprofits, but businesses as well. So it's a great thing to do. As you're seeing, as James is scrolling, there's a lot of other neat things we're trying to do. It's called Beethoven's 5th K. One of our musicians said, oh, well, we played Beethoven's 5th in January. Why don't we kind of play off that? And it was a really cool idea. So we're actually coordinating now to have that concert rebroadcast, which will be fun. We have a Spotify playlist that has Beethoven's 5th, all the movements on it, as well as a 5th of Beethoven, if you guys are familiar.
I have a question. Whose idea was run, 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 run? I love that.
I know. So we actually found that there are actually a lot of Beethoven's 5Ks that are out there.
Okay.
So we found that somewhere else. But yeah, so I'm glad you picked up on that, James. But yeah, there's the Spotify playlist. We also have an integration with, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Strava. Like I said earlier, I'm not a runner, but dedicated runners should know what that is. So we have a Strava Club, and Strava is an app that tracks your time and all kinds of other different things. It's, like I said, it's really for dedicated runners. So we have one of those for people who are interested in that. We have compiled a lot of routes our own. We're in the process of creating a PDF for it, and it goes around downtown and North Shore, but we have links, as you can see, to the Chattanooga Riverwalk route and Cleveland and Briley County Greenway. I lived in Cleveland, and so that Greenway I'm super familiar with. We're also, as you can see there, we're working with Reflection Writing and Enterprise South, trying to get routes for them as well. Because, you know, we understand that a lot of people are going to be doing this locally. So we thought that would be a fun thing to include too. There's really so much to talk about, and so much that I've learned during this process. But I did want to share a couple takeaways and then see if anyone else had any questions, because I know this is a ton of information distilled down into just a few minutes. But the first takeaway I wanted to talk about is leveraging your people and people with expertise who may not necessarily be affiliated with musician. If it wasn't for our musician who brought this to us, I don't know that I would have ever known or thought about this. And so when you're looking for creative ideas to fundraise during this really weird time, I would definitely say rely on your people and explore the ideas that they have. And then, of course, you know, people with expertise, relying on the people who have done it before. And I just think that's so important when you're looking at creative ways to fundraise. The second takeaway is that some virtual events require a lot of upfront work, and then some require a lot on the back end. This is definitely one that required a lot of work up front. It took a long time to gather all this information, to make our plans, to write out the text, to create the playlist and the Strava Club. But, you know, now that we're up and running, you know, it's largely just a marketing thing and trying to, again, continue to work with community organizations. In terms of virtual galas and stuff like that, pretty much like all the way across, it's work the whole time. So keep that in mind when you're deciding what kind of virtual events would work for you. The third, I've said this a bunch of times already, you know, leverage your existing partnerships. We're reaching out to people who have advertised with us in the past. We're reaching out to sponsors. We're reaching out to even people who, you know, like restaurants that we have just worked with in the past. So I think is the way that any virtual event is going to be successful, is by leveraging those existing partnerships. And then the fourth takeaway is also seeking out new partners who we are in conversation with that we haven't really talked to before about, you know, working together, because this is really kind of out of our comfort zone, or at least it's out of my personal an event like this. So I think that those new partnerships are also important as well. As James has up, you know, we would really love for y'all to participate or to share. We are trying so hard to get the word out there and get people to join. I think as of yesterday, or maybe today, I saw a new one come in. I think we have about 14 or 15 states represented in our participant list so far, but we're always looking for more. And I am more than happy to share other questions that anyone might have. Or James, I don't know if you have anything you'd like for me to expand upon even more.
No, I mean, we can open it up for questions. I just wondered who did the wonderful graphic right here.
So I actually did that.
Oh man, now we know who to come to.
Well, so our marketing manager, Kayla Sullivan, and I were brainstorming what kind of logo we would want. And the ASO folks were like, you have to have a cool t-shirt if you're going to do a race. You have to. So Kayla spitballing ideas, and she had the awesome idea to do the Chattanooga skyline, and somehow we landed on the Chattanooga skyline but made up with instruments. So that's kind of what that is. And you can see the Market Street Bridge, and you can see the aquarium, and then everything else is just kind of filled in. So yeah, and Samantha, I just saw dropped the race website link in the chat box. So if you guys want to get on there and explore that on your own, you can find that link there.
I love it. And thank you, Samantha. Kate Warren is saying that your graphic is brilliant too.
Oh,
so yeah.
Thanks, Kate.
So, if people wanted to talk to you more about this virtual 5K and maybe set one up themselves later in the year, would you share your email in the chat so they could reach out to you?
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to do that. And like I mentioned earlier, to me, the biggest thing about this was being able to connect with someone who had done it before. I don't know that I would have been brave enough to do it just by myself if I didn't have someone to talk to and just learn from their experience. So I'm more than happy to do that. And as soon as I'm done, I'll pop my email into the chat.
Well, thank you so much. So reach out to Rebecca if you have questions, and thanks for sharing this with us.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Thanks for letting me.
so I just wanted to turn it over to Miriam and ask her to share for a moment. She has a reminder about some racial equity training that we are making available. And then after that, we're going to open it up to everyone for announcements, comments, anything that you would like to share.
Okay,
I
all right.
think you were on mute. You're
Yeah,
good now.
I was trying to navigate the window. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, as James said, I just wanted to share this really great opportunity. It's part of our ongoing efforts to engage everyone in conversations and to take actions around racial equity in the local arts sector. So we are offering our community arts partners and also our venture or Arts Forward Institute. It's a groundwaters virtual training, and it's taking place October 10th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. I'll also add this link in the chat box, but it's a really great opportunity for anyone who is interested in being part of this conversation, this ongoing conversation.
All right, thank you. And we've sent an email to the mission support orgs to invite you to sign up. And then Monica will send you an email Monday that you can share with all of the Arts Forward cohorts so that they can sign up too. We do have limited spaces available, so if you're interested, jump on it and then we'll get right on paying for it for you. It's $100 and we'll cover the cost of it. And this just like Miriam said, supports the work that we're doing to address and build dialogue around racial equity in our local arts sector. So if you want to stop sharing, Miriam, then we can just open it up for announcements or information that people would like to share for the last few minutes of the Zoom.
Hey, so Marcus from Marketing Links here. Is it okay if I go first?
Yeah.
Hey, so we actually have tonight we have a free jazz concert in our backyard with Jim Crumble's trio. So it'll be a nice little, nice chill evening out back. Seating is limited. We only have like 30 people out there, but we will have areas marked out for everybody to stay distanced. Masks are required. And the concert is free. So if you want a little music in your life and you miss some live music, here's your chance to get some. And then tomorrow night at 9, we are going to be in the grass lot on the corner of 14th and Dodds for our third installment of the drive-in dances. And this one's going to be a little different. For one, I am dancing, which is interesting. And then we have an entirely original sound score that is actually spoken word pieces by all of the dancers who are participating. And this particular performance, we are looking at kind of how people are coping right now. Everything from coping with racism and the state of affairs of the world, reflections on family and trauma and healing and the future. It's a really beautiful exploration of our humanity, best way I can say it. And that is tomorrow night at 9 o'clock on 14th and Dodds. The admission is $25 per car. And you can go to our website and go ahead and purchase your tickets if you want to join us tomorrow. And we're doing a second performance next Saturday in case you missed the one tomorrow night.
Thank you, Marcus. And CSO says they have available tickets for their next week's live socially distanced performances of the wind and brass quintets at Collegeville Commons. So you can go to their website for that.
Okay, this is
What
Charlie.
else?
Charlie.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Charlie from Splash. Hey, how's everybody doing? I just want to announce that Splash is currently having free art classes every Tuesday and Thursdays on Facebook at from 5 to 6, and every Saturday morning from 11 to 12, and it's free. And if any new kids want to participate, we also try to give them free art supplies as well. And just one more thing, I like what Marcus is doing and what you guys are doing about racial equity. And I'd just like for us art partners to start thinking about what can we do together to change the culture here in Chattanooga, because as artists, we are the culture drivers. So I'd like for us to start having some serious conversations about what we could actually do, you know, as a collective to actually change some of the ugly culture that's here, and also to help out with the pandemic and all those types of things. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know in some of our upcoming mission support meetings, we're gonna get together and talk about some of those issues. So we definitely want to do that. And thank you. And if you remind us or like let us know, we'll share any of this stuff on ArtsBuild's Facebook page, social. We'll stream things. Just help remind us, because you know I'm getting older and my mind is not that great anymore. What else? I can see people putting stuff in the chat. Let's see. Jim says Sound of Tennessee live rehearsal at the Museum Center at 5 Points in Cleveland. Okay. And Rodney, I know you have some stuff coming up this weekend too.
Yeah, well, yeah, Saturday, we're really excited. It's going to be our first concert on our lawn. You may not realize that the Theater Center owns all the property down to the river. And so this is the first time in Theater Center history, to my knowledge, that we're actually using that space and actually creating a new venue. This is really a new venue for Chattanooga. It looks great. Kofi and his band, Kofi Mboko and his band will be playing, will be the act for the night. Right now we have, we're closing in on 100 tickets sold, which is excellent for our first time out. We're going to be spending this afternoon. I'm wearing shorts so I can go outside and actually help. We're putting squares out, so 8 by 8 foot squares and 6 foot pathways. We'll start tomorrow at 6 to 7, a happy hour, and then the show's from 7 to 8:30. So very excited and really pleased that we're getting such a very strong reaction. And then we open Having Our Say inside. 2 women play, the Delaney sisters, reflecting on their 100 years old and reflecting really, it's a way to explore the Black history in America from the 1800s up to almost current time. Very poignant and very timely. And the neat thing about these shows is that the actors are socially distanced. They'll always be 6 feet apart from each other. And so we're not only socially distancing the audience, of course, but we're also the performers as well. So we're excited to get back into business yet.
Thank you. And Rick, you said you're available for music lessons, virtual or in person, if you're feeling okay. You got to get that in. If you're coughing and stuff, Rick is like, we'll do it virtually, right? And then get that ukulele or guitar out. I love it. So can you put your email address so people can contact you? CAM, Freedom Sayings USA, has a new group for female veterans, and you can contact Bobby Standerford. Cam, do you have Bobby's contact information?
I can get that for you.
Please, yeah. And we'll include it in the follow-up email. Okay?
Sure. I've been sitting in on all their classes, and I'm a consult for them for fundraising and grants. So it's just been amazing. The male group has many participants. It's national now. And then now we have Hunter Girl from Nashville, who is one of ASCAP's top eight that they are really supporting as a rising country female, and she's fabulous with the women. So if you have contacts, and I'll look up Bobby's number and get it to you.
Yeah,
Okay?
thank you. Thanks for
All
letting
right.
us know.
Sure.
Mary, do you want to share, or you want me to just say, let's see. Yeah.
So the Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park are commemorating the 157th anniversary of the Battle for Chickamauga, which happened in Fort Oglethorpe over 3 days in September 157 years ago. So today, tomorrow, and Sunday, Jim Ogden is going virtual, which with his usual very intense schedule of storytelling to, obviously they can't do reenactments and all of that, but so everything is on Facebook, the entire schedule, and he's got several live Q&As that he's doing. And if anyone is looking for history enrichment activities for kids, they're doing noon every day with Park Ranger Emily. They're going to kind of explore what a soldier's life was like at the campsites, and ways that kids can recreate that at home with their parents. And also they're very heavily promoting the cell phone tours of the battlefield, which are also very enriching and exciting. And National Park Partners has had a little hand in helping fund those, especially now during the pandemic, to keep everyone connected. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? We're coming up on about 18-20 after 11. So if we don't have any more announcements, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out, sharing with us, helping us to build and continue to create community. Because I was on an interview last night with the mayor, and I had to remind him, when you say about Chattanooga is a great place to live, work, and play, it's the people in the arts sector that are really making that happen. So keep doing great things, keep holding us at Artsville accountable. Let us know how we can support you. And y'all have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.